All right, it's here. It is finally here. It's not dragons, but it's here. Kishiryu Sentai Ryusoulger has debuted, and episode 1 is now completely subbed, and most of us have seen it already, and if not, you should probably watch it because I will be spoiling a few things. Quick note for future reference in general, I'm using overtime subs when I refer to everything happening in the episodes, so if I ever mention a specific translation that doesn't jive with what you're watching, bear in mind, maybe different subgroups. That being said, here it is, and I have seen a lot of positivity towards it, which is super cool. I love seeing people excited about this stuff. It's always good to see people getting really excited, especially if they're maybe coming off a season they didn't like or a season they did like, because you can also get some immediate backlash if you really love the previous season and the new one isn't immediately doing it for you. But regardless, a lot of people are really excited, and I watched it, and I did like it. Now, with that being said, I am not over the moon for it like I have seen with some people. There are things I definitely liked. There are some things that I didn't like, and there are some things that it's episode 1, and I don't know where it's going to go. It could be really cool, really annoying. It's hard to tell. It's episode 1. And before I get going, that's kind of where I want to start. And I mentioned this in my prologue video a little bit. I firmly believe every Toku premiere is good. I have never watched an episode 1 of any Toku show and gone, well, this looks bad. The closest I've come, I think, is Kamen Rider Zio, where I watched episode 1 and went, I'm not sure, but I also didn't dislike it. So, with that being said, I'm tempering positive feelings in a sense of this may not represent the whole show. There are plenty of Toku shows that start really strong and go south, or get really good if maybe they started like just enjoyable but not great. Episode 1, I feel like, is trying to throw a lot of tone in your face, usually. If it's not, unless it's going to be a really like twisty show, I think it's a lot of like they just want you to get a feeling out of it. It's not going to make you think super hard yet. It's going to make you wonder about what's coming, but it's not. It's hard to describe what it is trying to do. It's trying to hook you, of course, but I find that what it hooks you on can be maybe flash and spectacle and concepts, and I don't like to judge a show at all until I've got like 10 episodes to see how those things are unfolding or expanding. With that said, general points about the show and the episode. A quick thing, because I haven't super touched on it. Aesthetically, setting aside that I'm not incredibly excited that it's dinosaurs again, the show looks cool. The suits are great. The suits really are great. The mecha look really good, especially Kishiryu, which I'm going to say Kishiryu instead of Dinoknights Rex, which is what OT went with, which I understand based on both calling the Kishiryu Dinoknights and King Rex. I get it. I'm just going to be a weeb and call it by its proper name in Japanese because that's how I've been reading it for so long with all the promotional material. That's what I'm used to, and that's just me being a nerd. Everything looks really cool. Not a lot of the villains yet. I mean, they look like Sentai monsters, but the whole thing looks cool aesthetically. Swords as a motif is honestly just neat and cool to see, especially in this knight context, which, you know, they're setting that up. It seems to be a thing. We'll see how the show goes, but there are knight-esque things, so I'm here for that. The opening is really good. It's one that I think it doesn't blow me away immediately. I feel like, as with a lot of openings, I will probably come to like it a lot more as the show keeps going, but it is good. It's definitely good. The visuals for it are very good. I really actually like the visuals for the opening. The ending is fine. It's got good like energy, but I'm gonna sort of touch on my feelings about it towards the end. I will say I'm not a huge fan of Sister Mayo. in general, just among the Project R singers. She's not one of my favorites, but some other things I want to say about that. But yeah, it looks cool. But what's important, of course, is also the show itself. As far as the plot and the lore, which are kind of one and the same at the moment because it's episode 1, they have to throw concepts at us. I like the ideas. If all Sentai are in one continuous universe, the story of dinosaurs' extinction is very complicated. But the villains being, if not native to Earth, at least being on Earth in ancient times and fleeing before extinction of the dinosaurs is interesting, and now they're coming back to reclaim their turf. That's interesting. It's a little different from what the other dinosaur Sentai have done, so I appreciate something of a spin. The hidden tribe with the legacy of knights to protect the people, and with the Kishiryu to fight the Minosaurs and the Druidon people, all really cool. I like that. The whole show in general is kind of like Carranger meets like Gingaman Ranger mythology, sort of, which from an aesthetic standpoint is not a bad place to be. I've not watched Gingaman, so I can only kind of speak from hearsay and what people have told me there, but still, that's a cool setup. Actually having the powers handed down from like generation to generation is just a really nice touch. It does help with that knight feel, because real knights with kind of ties to nobility and all that kind of stuff. It's a cool idea. I like seeing it. Having the masters do that was really cool. Have some other feelings about that. It's a good setup. It was weird to me that to explain who Druidon is to us, they had Ko go, "Who's that?" And what have they been training you to do if they haven't explained the Druidon tribe to you? Like, you think if you're training to be the next Ryusoulger, they'd be like, by the way, this is who you're fighting. Oh, and minor thing, I am probably going to jump back and forth between saying like Ryusoul and Ryuso, because they spell it one way and they say it the other, and I don't know why they had to do that, but apologies for inconsistency now. So as far as that setup goes, it's cool. The actual plot of this first episode is a good setup with some things I'm not sure how I feel about yet. I mean, it's a general, hey, they're attacking, whoa, they're powerful, we're gonna have to be stronger to beat them. It wasn't anything crazy revolutionary in that regard. It's a setup for a Sentai, and it was a good setup for a Sentai. The big plot thing that happened, I think, is the masters dying. And that's like it's a powerful motivation for our characters. It has a cool connection to how they keep their powers by using like the souls of their masters. It's kind of like in Ghost when Takeru got Boost and it's the soul of his dad. That's a good idea. I will say, I don't know if I like the masters dying this quickly. And it's Sentai, they could come back, who knows. I have no idea where this plot's going, obviously. But half of me is just like, oh, those were all Toku actors, and I'm sure they filmed some other scenes that are like flashbacks, but I kind of wanted them to just be in the show the whole time. And part of me is like, but it's good motivation, and maybe they couldn't be in the show the whole time. We don't even know if Green and Black have masters. There's been nothing revealed about that yet. That's something I'm still figuring out how I feel about it, and I haven't really come to a conclusion. I'm also a little biased because Master Blue is my boy Ibuki, but that's okay. It's not a bad writing choice, and any disappointment I have is mostly based on expectations I had, which isn't something fair to hold against the show. Just because it didn't do what I thought it was going to do or what I wanted to do is not the same as making a bad choice. So I'm still weighing my feelings if I separate myself from my expectations, if I like it that way. I guess we'll see how the show goes and see how I feel about it. With that, as far as our cast of characters go, so we did not meet the whole team. First of all, Green and Black are off doing their own thing. They say like, oh, they left the village already, which isn't a bad setup. If you watched Super Sentai Strongest Battle, you saw them in their little scenes in each episode, and then they had their big look at our show debut fight, which was, cool, as all debut cameo fights are. But we met red, blue, and pink. So red is Ko. Blue is... So for a long time, Blue's name was Melt. And I guess, I don't know if there was an official romanization somewhere, but it's Melto. And that just sounds so much dumber when you say it out loud with an American accent. And I kind of wish he was just called Melt, because even though that's a word, something about it sounds a little better. But we have Melto. I have to get used to saying that. And then Asuna. And we get their personalities in kind of a surface level summary, if I'm being honest, and I think that's okay. We don't super get to know them. Ko is spunky and a little silly and headstrong, but got a good heart. He doesn't seem like he's like a dumb hyper red, which I'm cool with, because there are good dumb hyper reds. Like, I'm someone who actually likes Daigo from Kyoryuger, but we've had a lot lately, and I'm cool if we hold off for a few seasons. Melto is the calmer, smarter one, though I don't think he'll be the most serious on the team, because they seem to be setting up Black to be the most serious. And then Asuna's the kind of spunkier girl type they tend to do, with the joke about her strength being the kind of quirky factor, though I will say, when she threw Ko into a cliff, that was one of my favorite things in the whole episode. We don't get a lot, honestly, like from a character standpoint, if I'm just being honest, we don't get a lot of them. And I think that's okay. I feel like it makes it hard for me to give any judgment. We do spend much more time with one of them than the other two, and I'll talk about that. Aside from that, we didn't get a lot of the masters. They were wise, helpful people. The Elder is certainly a mentor character. It's cool that he's Ultraman Jack, but I get the feeling he's not gonna be super interesting unless they reveal some like cool backstory, or he's got some like maybe even a silly personality trait we don't know about. Right now he's just kind of the wise old dude, and man, his wig is bad. I know we're talking, it's Toku and wigs are never great, but like Melto's blue hair isn't that bad. But yeah, Elder's hair is bad. And we do get our two side characters from like the outside world in Yui and her uncle. And this is one of those things where I don't know where it's gonna go. We barely get anything with the uncle. I have no judgment of him at this point. Yui is very, very clearly a comedy character, if that makes sense. I'm sure she's going to have some heartfelt stuff happen at some point in the show, but she's primarily going to be here for jokes. You can tell. Characters like that, especially in Toku, can really go one way or the other. There are some characters in Toku shows who are there to be funny, and they are very, very funny. But there are some who get real annoying real fast because they don't contribute, and it comes down to, if you're not helping the plot, are your jokes funny? And if they're not, I do not know where she's gonna go. I'm a little worried, just because it's that level. I'm getting vibes that remind me of Shunpei from Kamen Rider Wizard, and I did not like him. And he was very much just here to be silly, and I did not care about him. I did not like him. I did not think he was funny. And I hope this is not where that's going. That was just a weird first impression I got. And I'm hopeful that I'm wrong. And it's only episode 1, so I very much could be. And I don't want to pass judgment on her acting and the writing. It's so early. I can only give first impressions. Then the villains, we met 2 of them. The big guy and the mushroom person, they have names. One is Tank Joe. I don't remember the other one's name. I could look it up, but it doesn't matter. You know who I mean. That's not even laziness. That's just, I want to see if they leave an impression on me. Right now, I do actually prefer the one whose name I can't remember, because I like that they seem sort of snarky. I liked when they were like laying around like just an asshole when Master Red was dying. I like them. I also assume that's the Make My Monster Grow character that you usually get. Tank Joe is big and evil. He did not do anything particularly that stood out other than murder a character, but like from a personality perspective, there was nothing that really stood out. I have a sneaking suspicion he's not the main villain. I don't remember if that was confirmed by anything, but there's even that silhouette of other monsters. I'm gonna assume he's like the leader for now, but we're gonna learn who like the real leader is, and I hope they're interesting, because he doesn't strike me as interesting. Now, another important thing to talk about, of course, is action. This is a Toku show. We're here to watch people fight. It's good. It is well choreographed. It all being swords means it's cool, like melee level combat. I will say, aside from a few like big special effects attacks, nothing super stood out to me. Kind of like I remember last season watching Loopat, the first episode, there was a big combat where they did that like crazy camera movement that the show would use for most of its action scenes, and that was like an immediate, whoa, this is weird and different and I like it. Nothing really like that here. The way the souls work to give them armor is cool. It's very Forze module in that there'll probably be a lot of them that do a lot of like specific auxiliary things, and then they're gonna get forms from a few of them. They're neat. They do feel like an amalgamation of like Kyoryuger's Armed On and, well, I guess something like a Forze module in terms of their utility. I watched a lot of the action and was just like, this is good, but I wasn't blown away. Except for the mech fight. The mech fight was really good, because having a robot suit that someone can move in is a really good idea. I really liked the modular nature. I didn't really know how they were going to explore that, but the drill knees and then like switching Triken to the leg to do like the big like blade kick, like all that was super cool. It's really neat because usually the mech fights are the fights I like the least in Sentai because they're slow and bulky, and I'm not really a big like kaiju guy in terms of the action, just because I find, unless it's like animated, it tends to just be a little slow for me. So this excites me. This makes me happy. Aesthetically, Kishiryu has actual design layout that I'm not fond of. I don't like main mecha that are mostly like the red mech standing up. I don't really like Kyoryujin that much. I don't like Geki Toja. I don't like modular mecha are fine. Like if the full version of this mecha was just like green and black became the legs, I'd be here for it, because that to me is like what Sentai mecha should look like. I know it's not what happens, so visually it's leaning a certain way, and this episode is kind of leaning a certain way, and that's sort of what I'm getting at next. Wow, this episode was about Ko, wasn't it? A premiere episode of a Sentai that already doesn't have the full team together is one thing. There can be writing reasons, but wow, Ko really was the one who did the most. Okay. I don't think it's inherently bad if Sentai focuses on its red. There are good shows that do that. I think Kyoryuger actually does it better than people give it credit for. Shinkenger has a lot of focus on Takeru, and I think it does it well. Towards the end of the show, like Go Busters becomes a little more about Hiromu, and I think it's fine. You can do this and make it okay. I hope this show does, because the bigger, more extended fight scenes all involve just him the mech fight is literally just him. That annoyed me more than anything. Especially when they've just got Melto and Asuna, like, 1,000 yards staring after the death of their masters. And that's not a bad emotional reaction. I just don't like that you use it as an excuse to just let your red run wild. And it wasn't like for plot reasons either. He was the one they showed us who did things, and this whole episode, I will say, structurally was very odd to me. You do a lot of setup that's normal, and then when we get to the fighting part, it's a lot of red. Like blue and pink and their masters do a little bit of fighting against that Minosaur. But man, a lot of red. Just a lot. And then at the end, to have like the big roll call transformation be the end of your episode, and then the full transformation to be the end of your episode, was a little weird to me, because I wanted that to be the big like hell yeah moment before a big fight where I get to see all three of them really flex their stuff. That's not really what we got, and I'm just hoping that was a premiere move, because it was weird, and I just want another Sentai that gives everyone an even amount of focus, because those shows exist, and I'd like to see that again, especially coming off of the great debate of the two teams of Lupat. I also find it a little odd that episode 2 looks like it's still not bringing in green and black, and it's just going to be more focused on the three we have doing things with their mecha, and I guess you need to do that when they don't get to do that in episode 1, but I really want the team to get together. I really want to meet everyone. I want them to do all things as a group and be good and fun. I guess the last thing I want to touch on before I give overall thoughts is, it was talked about before, and I want to just address it having watched the show. Kyoryuger exists, and there's been a lot of talk of like, is this going to be the new Kyoryuger? There are similarities based on episode 1, and maybe this is a weird thing to compare now, but I want to bring it up, I guess. They're still yelling in Portuguese. The mecha has the exact same color layout. The end dance... the end dance, it's weird for me to say that felt like Kyoryuger because there's a lot of ending dances in Sentai. But I think when the dinosaur started dancing, I just went, oh, okay, we are going for this. Though I did like Kishiryu dancing. I am hopeful that it's just aesthetic and I get over it. I probably will get over it. Yeah, it's there. Plot-wise, it is not. I will definitely say plot-wise, it is not. And that's more important. It is mostly surface level and aesthetic. It's still annoying to me that they're doing it because they're probably trying to bank on that goodwill, but it is not awful, and I acknowledge that even talking about it is more just to be like, hey, this has been brought up, so I just want to bring it up at least once now that the show is happening. With all that being said, I feel like this all sounds more negative than I actually feel. I am trying to be hopeful and optimistic while also being cognizant of how many Toku shows I've watched and how premieres have made me feel, and knowing that it's very much a taste, and I am nowhere near experienced everything the show has. I did like this episode. I very much did. It did not blow me away, and I don't know if it needed to blow me away. I just am hopeful that momentum is constant and they keep it interesting and they learn from what I think the mistakes of the previous seasons are and maybe don't take the wrong lessons if this goes well. And I've talked about all this in the prologue, but I really do want this show to succeed because I want Sentai to succeed. I want the show to be good and succeed. And I think it can. I think there are plenty of good Sentai, and there are some in recent memory that prove they can make it good. Hopefully that comes true. We all have a great time. I hope a lot of people are already having a good time. Again, I did see a lot of very positive reactions, and that is awesome. I also had a positive reaction. I'm just not jumping for joy. I'm gonna be watching real hard. I'm gonna be hoping it continues to pull me in, because you've already enticed me. I just need to become engrossed, and I hope the show can do that. With all that being said, that's only one episode. There's plenty more to come. I'm sure the next few are going to be more setup stuff to get the show going before we get into any really meaty plot stuff and character stuff. And I hope it's really cool. I am really excited. I really, really hope that it does well on at least one front, whether it be ratings or toys. And I will end this with saying that if you are someone who does really like the show already, or just wants to support it, or just wants to support Sentai, if you are able to, buy some toys. Maybe just one. Ratings are something that, as a Western fan, I cannot affect. That is out of my power. That is probably out of a lot of your power, unless you have access to Japanese television, you live in Japan, or there's some weird workaround that I'm not aware of. Toy sales we can impact, to an extent. I don't know the logistics behind it. I don't know how numbers travel if we're buying from, distributors like Hobby Link Japan and AmiAmi and CS Toys and places like that. I don't know if those numbers really get back the same way, because I don't know the logistics of toy sales. But it is, to some level, a contribution. And if it's something you can contribute to and you want to contribute to, I'd encourage it. I'm going to wait personally to see if the show holds my interest. But if it does, I'll probably try and pick up something, like the changer or the sword at least. But that would be my final little thought at the end of this. So if you can, support the franchise in a way that is within your grasp. And if not, that's fine. Keep watching, keep talking about it. Getting out words, the positivity can get out there. We've seen that we can talk to Kamen Rider producers on Twitter about things we shouldn't know, so maybe we can talk to Sentai producers about how we like the show. With that, though, now we're just waiting for the next episode. Now it's time to really get going, and I'm excited. New Sentai, it's always fun. We have the next episode of Kishiryu Sentai Ryusoulger to look forward to. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will be back when that episode is out, unless something crazy happens in between.